Imagine being thrown into a dark well by your own brothers. Left to die. Alone. Terrified. Only 12 years old. Then imagine being sold as a slave in a foreign land where no one knows your name, your lineage, or your worth. You grow up in a palace that isn't yours. You're trusted, honored, even loved, but you're still a slave. Then imagine the woman who controls your entire life trying to seduce you. And when you refuse, she doesn't just walk away. She destroys your reputation, accuses you of the very thing she wanted from you, and watches as you're thrown into a prison cell for a crime you never committed. Most people know the story of Prophet Yusuf, peace be upon him, as a story of beauty, patience, and eventual kingship. But between the well and the throne, there were 7 years, 7 long, agonizing years locked in a dungeon where no sunlight entered, no justice existed, and no rescue seemed possible. These were the years the Quran barely describes in detail. But they were the years that shaped him, tested him, refined him into one of the greatest prophets in history. Today, you're going to walk through those 7 years. From the first night he entered that prison to the moment the doors finally opened. And by the end, you'll understand that the hardest tests in life aren't the ones that break you, they're the ones that prepare you for something greater than you ever imagined. Let's begin where most retellings skip over. The moment Yusuf realized this wasn't just a trial. It was a transformation. Imagine standing in the grand hall of the Aziz, the chief minister of Egypt. You've been accused of something you didn't do. The woman who tried to seduce you now stands before the court with torn clothes, claiming you attacked her. You say nothing at first. Because what can you say? You're a slave. She's royalty. Your word against hers means nothing in this world. Then Allah sends a witness, a baby from her own household who speaks the truth. The Quran says, "If his shirt is torn from the front, then she has told the truth and he is of the liars. But if his shirt is torn from the back, then she has lied and he is of the truthful." They check. The shirt is torn from the back. The proof is undeniable. She chased him. He ran. She grabbed him from behind. He is innocent. For a brief moment, you think justice will prevail. The Aziz himself acknowledges it. He tells his wife, "Indeed, it is of your plan. Indeed, your plan is great." He knows the truth. Everyone in that room knows the truth. But here's the tragedy. Knowing the truth and acting on it are two different things. The Aziz faces a choice. Publicly admit his wife tried to seduce a slave and humiliate his household. Or bury the truth and make the problem disappear? He chooses reputation over justice. The Quran tells us, "Then it appeared to them, after they had seen the signs, that they should surely imprison him for a time." Not because Yusuf was guilty, but because letting him go free would expose the scandal. Prison wasn't punishment. It was damage control. Imagine that moment. You've been proven innocent. The evidence cleared you. Yet the guards still grab your arms and drag you toward the dungeon. You look back at the Aziz, hoping he'll stop him. But he turns away, and the doors close behind you. This is how injustice works. Truth doesn't always set you free. Sometimes, truth gets you locked up because the people in power care more about appearances than righteousness. Yusuf, peace be upon him, entered the prison knowing something most people never accept. Allah's plan is greater than human justice. Imagine your first night in prison. The air is thick. The walls are damp. The only light comes from a crack somewhere far above. You hear the voices of other prisoners, some weeping, some cursing, some silent in despair. You are alone. Completely alone. No family. No friends. No visitors. The only people who know where you are want you forgotten. This is the moment most people break. This is where bitterness takes root, where anger grows, where faith begins to crack. But not Yusuf. The Quran doesn't tell us he cried out in frustration. It doesn't say he questioned why Allah allowed this. Instead, we're told something remarkable. He began to call people to Allah inside the prison. Think about that. He wasn't focused on himself. He wasn't obsessed with his own suffering. He saw his imprisonment as an opportunity to spread the message of Tawhid, the oneness of Allah, to people who had never heard it before. Scholars say that Yusuf, peace be upon him, became known in that prison not as a criminal, but as a man of wisdom, righteousness, and dreams. Why dreams? Because Allah had given him the gift of interpreting dreams, a skill his father, Prophet Yusuf, peace be upon him, had taught him as a child. And in ancient Egypt, dreams were considered sacred messages from the gods. People believed they held power, warnings, and prophecies. So when word spread that there was a young man in the prison who could interpret dreams with accuracy, people began coming to him. And Yusuf used every single conversation as a chance to remind them, your dreams don't come from statues or stars. They come from the one who created you. This was the first year. The year of adjustment. The year of choosing his identity. He could have become a victim. Instead, he became a caller to truth. Even in chains, he was free. Imagine 3 years passing. Then 4. Then 5. You wake up every day to the same stone walls. The same foul air. The same routine. Nothing changes. No trial date. No appeal. No word from the outside world. Some prisoners give up. Some go mad. Some forget who they were before they entered. But Yusuf never forgot. He never forgot that he was the son of Yaqub, the grandson of Ishaq, the great-grandson of Ibrahim, peace be upon them all. He came from a lineage of prophets. And prophets don't break in the dark. They grow. The Quran doesn't give us a detailed description of these middle years. But silence in the Quran is never emptiness. Silence means internal transformation. These were the years where Yusuf learned. 1. Patience isn't just waiting. It's waiting with trust. Most people can wait for a week, a month, maybe a year. But 5 years? That kind of patience requires absolute certainty that Allah hasn't forgotten you. Loneliness is where you discover your relationship with Allah. When no one visits you, you learn to speak to the one who never leaves. When no human comforts you, you learn that Allah's presence is enough. Pain has a purpose you won't understand until later. Yusuf didn't know why he was in prison. He didn't know it was preparing him to become the treasurer of Egypt. He didn't know that his ability to interpret dreams would one day save an entire nation from famine. All he knew was that Allah was with him. And that was enough. During these years, 2 prisoners entered his cell. Both had troubling dreams. One dreamed he was serving wine to the king. The other dreamed birds were eating bread from his head. They came to Yusuf and said, "Inform us of the interpretation. Indeed, we see you to be of those who do good." Notice what they said. They didn't just see him as someone skilled in dreams. They saw him as a good person. Even in prison, his character shined. Yusuf interpreted both dreams. He told the first man, "You will be released and return to serving the king." He told the second, "You will be executed, and birds will eat from your head." Then he said something crucial to the man who would be freed. "Mention me to your master." This wasn't arrogance. This was a lawful means, Asbab. Yusuf was using the tools Allah had given him to seek freedom. He had faith in Allah, but he also took action. The man was released. The dream came true. But he forgot. He didn't mention Yusuf to the king. And so the silence continued. Imagine watching that prisoner walk out of the cell. You're happy for him. Hopeful. You reminded him to mention you to the king. You told him your story. He promised he would. Days pass. Weeks. Months. A full year. He never mentions you. The Quran says, "But Satan made him forget the mention of his Lord, so he remained in prison several years." Some scholars said, several years means anywhere from 3 to 7 additional years. Others said it refers to the total duration. Either way, the point is clear. Yusuf was forgotten. This is one of the most painful tests a human being can endure. Not physical torture, not public humiliation, but being forgotten by the people you helped. You did good. You were kind. You gave them the truth, and they walked away without a second thought. Most people become bitter here. They stop helping others. They close their hearts. They say, "I'll never trust anyone again." But Yusuf didn't. Why? Because he never relied on people in the first place. His trust was in Allah. The prisoner forgetting him wasn't a failure of faith. It was a redirection of dependence. Some scholars said that Yusuf was even given a mild rebuke from Allah for saying, "Mention me to your master," instead of saying, "Allah will free me when he wills." Whether that's true or not, the lesson remains. Allah delays, so you remember who's really in control. Had Yusuf been freed immediately, he would have credited the prisoner. But because he was forgotten, when freedom finally came, it came directly from Allah's plan, not through human favor. These final years were the hardest, not because of the conditions, but because of the hope that kept getting delayed. The door that almost opened, but didn't. Yet Yusuf never stopped praying, never stopped calling people to Allah, never stopped believing that his Lord had not abandoned him. And then, after 7 long years, everything changed in a single night. Imagine the king of Egypt waking up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, terrified by a dream he doesn't understand. He sees 7 fat cows being eaten by 7 thin ones. He sees 7 green ears of grain and 7 dry ones. The images are vivid, disturbing, and feel like a warning. He calls his advisors, his priests, his magicians. "What does this mean?" They have no answer. They say, "These are confused dreams, and we are not learned in the interpretation of dreams." Then, suddenly, the man who had been in prison with Yusuf, the one who forgot him for years, finally remembers. He says, "I will inform you of its interpretation, so send me forth." He goes to the prison. He finds Yusuf. He tells him the king's dream. And Yusuf, without hesitation, without bitterness, without saying, "You forgot me for 7 years," gives the interpretation immediately. "You will plant for 7 years as usual. Keep what you harvest in its spikes, except a little you will eat. Then will come after that 7 difficult years, which will consume what you saved, except a little you will store. Then will come a year in which people will be given rain and pressed grapes and olives." It was a prophecy, an economic plan, a survival strategy, and it came from a man sitting in a prison cell. The king hears the interpretation and is stunned. "Who is this man? Bring him to me," the king commands. The messenger rushes to the prison. The doors open. Freedom is finally within reach. But Yusuf doesn't run out. He doesn't leap at the opportunity. Instead, he says something shocking. "Return to your master and ask him, what was the case of the women who cut their hands? Indeed, my lord is knowing of their plan." He refuses to leave until his name is cleared. 7 years in prison. Freedom is offered. And he says, "Not yet. First, prove my innocence." This is the ultimate sign of a man who values truth over comfort. He could have walked out and started his new life. But he wanted the world to know he wasn't guilty. He wanted justice, not just release. The king investigates. The women confess. The wife of the Aziz admits the truth publicly. Now the truth has become evident. It was I who sought to seduce him, and indeed, he is of the truthful. Only then does Yusuf leave the prison, not as a pardoned criminal, but as a vindicated innocent man. Imagine walking out of that prison after 7 years. Your back is straighter. Your heart is pure. Your faith is unshakable. The king doesn't just free you. He honors you. He says, "Bring him to me. I will appoint him exclusively for myself." When Yusuf speaks to him, the king is so impressed that he says, "Indeed, you are today established in position and trusted." Then Yusuf does something no free prisoner would ever think to do. He volunteers for responsibility. He says, "Appoint me over the storehouses of the land. Indeed, I will be a knowing guardian." He doesn't ask for rest. He doesn't ask for revenge. He asks for the opportunity to serve, to save lives, to use the wisdom Allah gave him in prison to rescue a nation from famine. And Allah grants him exactly that. The boy who was thrown in a well became the man who controlled the wealth of Egypt. The slave became the treasurer. The prisoner became the second most powerful man in the kingdom. But none of that would have happened without the 7 years. Imagine if Yusuf had been freed after 1 year. He wouldn't have met the king's servant. He wouldn't have interpreted the dream. He wouldn't have been in position when the famine came. Imagine if he had been freed after 3 years. The king wouldn't have had the dream yet. The opportunity wouldn't have existed. But 7 years? That was exactly the amount of time Allah needed to refine Yusuf's character, spread his reputation as a man of God, position him at the right place at the right time, prepare an entire nation for the crisis only he could solve. The delay wasn't cruelty. It was precision. Every year in that prison was building something. Every silent night was shaping him. Every forgotten promise was redirecting his dependence back to Allah. And when the time was right, not a day early, not a day late, the doors opened. The same is true for you. The job you didn't get. The marriage that didn't work out. The opportunity that slipped away. The pain that won't seem to end. Maybe you're in your 2nd year. Maybe you're 5th. Maybe you've lost count. But if you're still breathing, still believing, still calling on Allah in the dark, then your story isn't over. Yusuf's 7 hardest years became his greatest preparation. Your hardest years might be doing the same. This is Soulful Deen. If this reminded you that delay is not denial, subscribe and share it with someone who's still waiting for their prison doors to open. Because Allah's timing is perfect, even when it doesn't feel like it. Especially when it doesn't feel like it.